let's start the meeting with special intentions. I know the mayor and Councilmember Wilmot had something to say. Councilmember Wilmot, with the special intentions.
Thank you, Madam President. First off, I'd like to mention Annie Pyle, who recently had a serious eye corrective surgery in one eye, and she's due to have another one. She's a young child. It's my wife's young cousin. Margie Lentini, who also is receiving treatment for a serious illness. She is a sister-in-law of former state senator. Cindy Landry, who recently passed away. She was a friend and a retired UNO administrator and a longtime member of the Alliance for Good Government. Gloria Burkett, who recently passed away. She was truly a wonderful and caring person, and she was family. Please, I ask that you please keep these people and their families in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I have a few. We have Sandra Everett, who has been an employee of the city of Kenner for a long time. She worked with Recreation, and now she works with General Services. Her mother and her mother-in-law both passed away. Jane Robinson was her mother, and also her mother-in-law was Frances Everett. Got to keep this lady, Sandra, like all special intentions, but especially, I believe she was driving to go see one of them, not go see him, but go, to the passing of one of them and found out that the other one had just passed away too. That's a lot to take on at one time. Any death is incredible, but to take on both of those at the same time, let's keep Sandra in our thoughts and prayers. Terry and Dudley Miguez and a former employee, Sharon Miguez, their mother, who is also a former employee, passed away, Geraldine Miguez. She passed away this week. Actually, it happened at the 50th anniversary of the Apollo event we had the other day. And he was actually working. Our employees are incredible because he had to come ask permission to leave to go see his mother, who he just found out passed away. So let's keep them in our thoughts and prayers. Some people that are ill right now that are former employees of either the city of Kenner or the police department. Carol Luna, a former CEO of the city of Kenner, good friend of most of ours, is recovering right now from surgery from the other night. I just talked to her daughter the other night, Mary, and she told me that she's doing better. And we also have Wayne McGinnis, a former Kenner Police Department officer, who is in the hospital right now. He's a little ill. Hopefully he's going to recover very soon. Let's keep him in our thoughts and prayers. I believe at the special council meeting the other night, I mentioned Jillian Clark, the young lady, LSU recent graduate that died in a helicopter crash. The Clarks are residents of the city of Kenner, Councilman Brian Brennan's district in District 5. I believe we had some special intentions on her, but let's continue to keep that family in our thoughts and prayers with such a tragic situation. That's all I have, Council President. Thank you.
Councilmember Segura, could you please lead us in the prayer?
Thank you. But before I do start, I do have one special attention too. One of our longtime lieutenants with the Kenner Police Department's father had a serious heart attack right before Hurricane Barry made landfall and was rushed to the hospital, but unfortunately this past Sunday succumbed to that heart attack, so he has passed. So please keep Lieutenant McGraw and his family in your prayers also. Dear Lord, as we gather here today to do the business of our city, please provide us with your guidance for us to make fair and proper decisions. As each of us up here consider our choice of decisions, may we be led by your fairness and kindness of all. In your name we pray.
Amen.
Councilmember Carroll, could you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam President, you have a quorum this morning. In accordance with Council Resolution Number B, 14550. Please be advised that all cellular telephones, pagers, beepers, and other devices of this nature must be deactivated or silenced throughout the council meeting. Do we have any resolutions, motions, or other items from the floor this evening? Seeing none. Madam Chairman, we have a motion to change the order of business this morning, to take item 18A at the beginning of the meeting. I have a motion by Councilmember Wilmot, seconded by Councilmember McKinney, to change the order of business to take item 18A. Council members, please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Item 18A, at the request of Councilmember Wilmot, a legislative wrap-up given by State of Louisiana Representative Joseph Stagney.
Councilmember Wilmot, would you like to say a few words before?
Thank you, Madam President. I'd just like to say that State Representative Joe Stagney is here with us today and to give us a recap on some important things that took place during this past legislative session that ended early June of this year. He is known for his dedication, hard work, and representing the best interest of the city of Kenner and its residents, as well as all other areas of his district. I know that Representative Stagney has some interesting information that he would like to share with us at this time, and he wishes to address this body, and I thank you for coming here today, Representative Stagney. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wilmot. I don't know how interesting it'll be, but I will relay some information that went on at the state level. And I'd like to open it up first by Mayor Zahn, Chief Glazer, who I don't see, Madam President, council members, directors, and audience members. I'm thankful that I was able to participate with all of you during the Barry hurricane event. I appreciate the mayor's invite. Appreciated being, I get updates from the state, but I continually tell people there's no closer body to their constituents than local government, and especially council members and the mayor. And I appreciate being updated inside your EOC, and I said this then and I'll say it now, Doug Dote does as good or better job than anybody that I know that participates with the disaster recovery, emergency management. He's well prepared, and when he's well prepared, I know this administration and its employees, that means Kenner's well prepared, and our citizens benefit from that. I'd also be remiss if I didn't say, while we were there, you all used the vehicle of social media and KTV, and I thought that was an excellent vehicle to get the message out. I recently participated with Senator Gary Smith on the Louisiana Business Spotlight, and we talked about the legislative session. And KTV is, in my view, and underappreciated, and not by this administration because they're using it very well. But I remember when I sat where you all sit, that after council meetings, people would come up to me and say, yeah, you said this, or they said this, or they would always mention what was said. And I don't know that there's ever been anybody to rate or get the ratings for KTV, but I know people look at it all the time. And I think it's a valuable resource for this city and for our citizens. And I thank all of you for allowing me to participate with you. Everybody did a fantastic job. I'm always proud to see, especially with this administration, drains are pre-cleaned. They do everything they can. We have one of the best fire and police departments in the state, and I'm proud when I'm in the legislature to say I represent a portion of Kenner. So with that said, I want to touch on a couple of things. One, I want to go to the airport first, and then I'd like to talk about some legislation that was passed. I organized a legislative tour for state reps and senators, and we extended the invite, and I think some of you all were there as well, with the new airport terminal. And I think since then, probably everybody has viewed it. I mean, it's $1 billion terminal, 35 gates, 3 concourses, 2 garages, and my overall impression was, wow, we have a first-class airport. This is going to be something fantastic. The openness, the natural lighting, it's phenomenal. Local restaurants, local art. There's going to be live bands being played. That's all fantastic. But one of the main reasons why I wanted to run for state representative is that a lot of that was done, and there was not a lot of planning when it came to entering and exiting the airport. Even my first meeting with the governor was New Orleans did not include in their first bond $25 million to $30 million in ground street construction. So the governor, some of us have had to play catch up, and so you're seeing the results of some of that now. And to the credit of this administration and the governor, they've worked hand in hand. And look, there have been some speed bumps, but you're seeing the Loyola improvements and expansion. The firehouse has been relocated or moved, and you all are going to put a new firehouse up. But they put there's 4 lanes on each side. You know, the state spent around $7.8 million to do that. And that's a short-term, temporary solution to what is going to be a traffic nightmare. We went further than that. We talked about doing an airport flyover, and they put that out for bid, and they've had, I don't know if I want to call it a bid, but a request for proposal, and they've gotten the proposals back. There's been 3. They chose a Louisiana company out of north, I think mid-Louisiana in Alexandria, Gilchrist, and it was done under a design build, which allows them to alter some of the specs so that if they can meet the criteria, they can be creative, and they did that. So I think we're going to be one of 2 people. If it is accepted by the people who go to the public hearings in the federal administration, highway administration, there's going to be a diverging diamond interchange at Loyola. There's one that's proposed in Baton Rouge, but there's 14 states that have had those. And they're able to move traffic counts much better than a normal way. The great news for us is that while the other 2 proposals probably came in at $180 million, this is down to $126 million, and they believe the construction time is going to take a year off what we thought was going to be a 4-year construction period. So I'm happy to say some of that heavy lifting by all of you guys and by us is slowly going by the wayside, and hopefully our citizens recognize that this was a problem that we all inherited, but that we've taken strong, fast, and efficient steps to try to rectify that problem. This legislative session was better for us because we ended up with a surplus from last year. And that's been a real plus because I've only been there 2 years, and in 2 years, I've had 7 legislative sessions. Typically, in a 4-year period, you get 4 sessions. So I've had 7 in 2 years, and it's been difficult, to say the least. But because of what a number of us did, and I'm proud to say that the entire Kenner delegation was part of the solution to end the fiscal cliff, we ended up with a surplus this year. So we were able, for the first time in a decade, to give our teachers and our support personnel raises. We put more money in higher education. We fully funded TOPS. And we gave some money to public school systems to expand their facilities. Again, that wouldn't have been possible if those people wouldn't have come together in the legislature to make it happen last year, and that was a majority of Republicans and Democrats. We also did some stuff with labeling of seafood. Now in restaurants, they're going to have to let you know if the seafood has been brought in from outside the country, and there's some real health reasons why you'd want to know that because of the way they're grown in other places. On foster children, they did some studies, and 1 out of every 5 foster children, when they turned 18, became homeless. And so through several studies, it showed that if you just increased the age to 21 and allowed them to stay with families, already when you're 18 years old, you go through a lot of changes, great changes. Transition from high school to college, high school to the workforce. This enables them to be with the families a little bit longer, and we're hoping that will be a positive step for foster children. Harrah's expansion. That I was disappointed on a number of gambling issues, but this was one that was a real positive. Over the next 5 years, Harrah's is going to spend $325 million, well over 1,600 construction jobs and 400 other jobs. They're going to put a hotel on site, and it had the support from the Hotel Association in New Orleans. And they're going to expand some of their meeting areas, and so that's going to be a plus. New Orleans is going to get more money, and we believe ultimately the state will get more money. One that really affects the city of Kenner, and I've worked with the mayor and the council early on when I first got in the legislature, not long after they signed with Kenner, already signed with Jefferson Parish and New Orleans, the TNCs, the Uber, Lyft, the transportation network companies, signed local contracts, and they went to the state and asked the state to do a statewide contract. And they had some valid reasons for that, but it seemed to a number of us that it was unfair after just negotiating with the city of Kenner and other entities that they would turn around and go to the state. And the original legislation did not have any fees in place, ride-sharing fees, for the entities that they had already signed a contract for. So we fought it the first year. Second year, I worked with the speaker and the Jefferson delegation along with New Orleans, and we let the legislation out of the House because they put grandfathering fees in. And this past year, they did finally pass it. You will not get an application fee, which is maybe for you guys $10,000 an applicant, but what you're saving is between $640,000 and $690,000. The city of Kenner gets more from the TNCs than even Jefferson Parish does, and that's because you guys were wise enough and bold enough to make sure that the airport that is located in our city has to pay its fair share to the city as well. So I was happy that we were able to hold on to that. They had another bill that would have negatively impacted Kenner. They wanted to get rid of inspection stickers. I think that while it may only be $40,000 a year or something like that, it has a real negative effect on the cars that would be allowed on your street, because I'm not sure anybody would regulate anything at that point. Had some bills for veterans. They're going to, economic development is going to promote veterans-owned businesses. And now when you go to vote, you'll be able to show if you've been in the military, a military ID, instead of just your driver's license to be able to vote. I had a number of bills, mostly healthcare related, since that's my background. One was to force some accountability and transparency. We budget a tremendous amount of money for healthcare in the state. And a lot of that just gets, in the Medicaid program at least, it just goes to 5 companies. And then those companies decide what they pay and what they don't pay based on what's submitted. And after doing a study, we found that we had some of the highest denial rates in the country. So I passed some legislation that forced some accountability and transparency. A lot of that I learned when I was up here. So, you know, the job, and Councilman Wilmot will tell you that because he was a state rep, the things that you do here are just magnified and at a bigger level at the state. There was one other bill that I was really proud. It wasn't my bill. I became a co-author. The bill came from the Senate. There was an amendment that essentially gutted the bill, but they asked me to handle it. And it was for our firefighters, our municipal and state trooper, police officers, and EMTs. And it was about a workers' comp where these people, they run into burning buildings, they see things that we all run away from. And over a period of time, that adds up. And there's some statistics that are clearly shown that they suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. And while they try to cope with that through alcohol or drugs, a lot of times absenteeism, the ultimate end to that is that they commit suicide. And last year we had 14 firefighters commit suicide. I don't remember what the number was. I knew it when it was on the House floor, but the medical personnel is even higher. And there were some insurance companies in workers' comp that kept denying their claim. So we tried to fix that, that said that it's presupposed that if they have that, it's related to this. So it allowed them to get early treatment, because early treatment is the solver of this problem, and they did it in Florida, and it increased the work productivity, the people at work, and it still doesn't just give them carte blanche, hey, you got PTSD because it's related to your job. It's a rebuttable diagnosis, but it allows them to get treatment. So for me, that was a really big deal. I have family that are firefighters. A lot of my friends are police officers, and so I thought that was a really good bill to handle on the floor. On the capital budget side, and I know I'm taking some time, but we were able to get the rest of the funding for the Parish Line Pump Station, and while it doesn't say the word Kenner on there, it is located in Kenner. It does drain northwest and west Kenner and a portion of the airport. There also was some money for Wood Lake drainage, and I told you about the $7.8 million cumulative for Loyola and I-10, and we were able to get the $30 million for the roadways around the airport, and Kenner Discovery through Senator Martini got about $450,000, which I think he's been able to do pretty regularly. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm sure I didn't cover everything, but I try to do the best I can. I appreciate the relationship between this body and this mayor and my office, because, you know, Baton Rouge is 60 miles away, and sometimes you can feel disconnected. I never have had a phone call where the mayor didn't respond or any of the council members, and just being back here feels like I'm coming home. So I appreciate you allowing me to be here.
Yes, Councilmember Wilmot. You have comments?
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to briefly comment. I heard you worked on something with Justice of the Peace, Judge Santani. Is that correct?
Yes, if you all don't know, the president of the Justice of the Peace and Constables Association is Kevin Santani, our Justice of the Peace. And he came to me with some legislation. And one of the things I love about Kevin, one of the things is Kevin is Italian. So I love talking to him because in a very brief time, he can pull a bunch of one-liners from any of the three Godfather movies, and he's got me laughing. And he said something one time, he said, hey, we're going to go to the table, drop the gun, and take the cannolis. And he told me this. The Advocate reporter overheard it, but when he told me it the first time when we were preparing to go there, I said, Kevin, go to Gindusa's and get some cannolis. I want to bring it to the committee. And later I'll share with you, because it was Kevin, myself, and Justice Chuck Cusimano. One, the committee loved the cannolis. Kevin's laughing, I'm laughing, and Judge Cusimano's looking like this is highly inappropriate. You shouldn't be giving the committee anyway. Gindusa's got a write-up in the paper. They made fun of us Italians, but we passed the bill. It was great working with Kevin. Sometimes we don't even know the people who are achieving right here in our community. He's done a fantastic job with that association. And I forgot the number of bills, but he asked me to handle one, and I did. And it was great working with Kevin. And so the cannoli thing really originated with Councilman Wilmot, who asked me, and look, for those of you who think Tom tells me what to do and I do everything, here's one he told me to say that Kenner is a cannoli capital of the world. And so as I started to shop that around a little bit, the people from Bocata's in town, the New Orleans legislators, they might not have agreed. But I would say this, I would put his cannolis up because he's got different flavors against anybody else. But thank you for asking that.
Thank you.
Yes. Councilmember Brannigan.
Hey, Joe, look, thanks for working with us, and you are accessible, and that's really important that when we call you, you're there for us. I do have one question on the Gaiman debacle that was at the end of the deal. It seems that we put ourselves behind Mississippi again and other areas, so do you see that coming back?
I see it coming back. Let me say this, the accessibility, working with you guys, that all started when the mayor and I started on this council in 2006. As a council member, you learn to work with your constituents. It's one of the reasons why, as a state, I do legislative surveys, I do newsletters, but I still ride around sometimes and just talk to people. You'd be surprised at what you can find out. It was I said earlier, it's one of the disappointments. The fantasy sports and the sports betting, it does not make sense to me that we're going to allow $25 million to go wager in Mississippi or Arkansas, and we are so far behind. And by the way, unless we do a special session, we can't bring it back next year. It's got to be 2 years from now. That's crazy, but it got rooted in some people from different industries within gaming having a turf war, and it ended up killing both bills. And that's unfortunate because people in 47 of our 64 parishes voted for fantasy sports, and I'm telling you, I think they believe they were voting for sports betting. But that's all Senator Martini's bill did for sports betting, was to put it on the ballot and let people vote. It wasn't even the structure being set up. And they're fighting over things that weren't even in the bill, and it ended up killing the bill. Danny had the foresight to see that it was a bill that we needed. He tried it last year. This year, it really got bogged down into parochial politics. I didn't like it at all. And so I mentioned Danny Martini, and I want to say this publicly. He is our senator for most of Kenner. Senator Smith's the other one. Danny is a superstar in Baton Rouge. If you look over his time in the Senate and his time in the House, there's a reason why Senator Martini handles the number of bills that he handles. He does an amazing job. And one of the things he and Judge Ansardi, former state rep Ansardi, former city attorney Ansardi, told me that the legislature's all about relationships. And that's true. And Danny has the best relationships among anybody in Baton Rouge. Now, because of the industries that got into this tug-of-war, it killed that bill. But you'll find people who may not have voted with Danny very much who think the world of him. And so, he's going to be term limited. That's going to be difficult for somebody to come up and do what he has been doing. And so behind probably him and John Alario were probably the two most effective people in the legislature that I saw. And so just a shout out to Danny on what a tremendous job he did for this city and for our state. And I'll steal some of that legislation going forward, by the way, the ones that didn't make it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Councilmember Brennan.
Thank you, Council Chair. Joe, just to reiterate what our colleagues have said, thank you for all your hard work and everything you do for not only the state but our city. I was going to speak about the emergency operations centers and such at the end, but I think kudos to everybody on your level, the council people in Jefferson Parish, the administration. I think it was a true test how we all work well together and get things done, and kudos to our employees. So again, thank you for everything you do for our city.
I appreciate it. And look, that was very apparent when you guys started rolling out everything you needed to do. And look, I feel like we're all a team, even though some of us may have to go to Baton Rouge and some of us are here. The shorter we can make that distance, the better off we are. I know just recently the governor opened the door to some cybersecurity issues that was happening in North Louisiana to some schools. And that allows, and I think our mayor has either done a declaration or put something out, but it allows those Homeland Security and some other departments to come in and help us to fend off any cyber viruses. So the more we can work in conjunction with Baton Rouge, and look, I came from where you guys are, there has been, and I believe that there'll continue to be, they want to try to cut cities and local government off from the state, and until they give real funding mechanisms, I'm not going to be for that. They haven't wanted to pass some of the stuff to allow local government to get revenue for themselves or split that revenue, but yet they've been trying to take the money away. So I can tell you, you'll have an advocate up there because, I started out with where you guys are and ladies.
Thank you. Councilmember Carroll.
Thank you, Madam President, and Representative Stagney. Thanks again for showing up today. As always, you and I served together on the Kenner Council. It was a smooth transition from Councilmember Wilmot, to yourself and the state representative, and even beyond that, you, myself, and Councilman Wilmot, our relationships on the Kenner Recreation with our children, we were friends before any of us got involved in this stuff, so that means a lot. It helped with our relationship as we move forward, helping the city of Kenner and the state of Louisiana. So thanks again for your support, as always, with that, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Also, there are two things specifically that we can talk later, but I just wanted to bring up. One was the project that was started by Councilmember Wilmot as it relates to the Lincoln Manor Capital Project along the canal, just to get a brief status on that. Where is that? And two, I am trying to, I would like to put out a letter to the residents of Susan Park, Veteran Heights, Lincoln Manor, and the University City, just to try to keep them updated on the project for the airport. Now, things keep changing, so I'm having to keep pulling back. So I will be reaching out to you again so we can have something that's not long, but something to point out bullets to the people to keep them abreast as we move forward. So those are the two things as it relates to your current position.
The drainage in Lincoln Manor, there was nothing in, and look, I went and researched it, and there was nothing in the capital budget that was by that title, but there was some drainage through, and I forget the canal number, but West Esplanade Canal that did get some. If you got a letter from Senator Gary Smith, he still refers to it as Lincoln Manor drainage. So I think some of that was addressed this legislative session, but it wasn't under that title. I mean, Gary put it out that way, but it was under one of the West Esplanades. And when I met with Jefferson Parish, when they submitted their green book and everything they do on behalf of the city and the parish, that's where they told me it was. So there was some funding in this. I can't tell you exactly right this second how much that was, but it's needed. And so to Ruby Noble, who heads up the Jefferson delegation, I mentioned to her that I didn't see that at the time, and I remember then State Representative Wilmot showing me that, and it was specifically Lincoln Manor drainage. So I don't know why they changed the title. They claim that this will help as much. I don't know that.
But just to be, for clarity for myself, I guess that is something we need to find out for sure, because I'm almost certain it said that.
Oh, it did at one time.
It said it, and that's what we all thought was happening. Now, based on what you're telling me now, some of the verbiage may have changed, and even the area where we're talking about could have changed. So that is a conversation that we have to have.
They're saying this project will be helpful. And look, as you know, I'll probably go into detail too much on some things. I could not go back and find in writing where it said Lincoln Manor.
All right.
I mean, but in my meeting with them, I focused on that. Let me go to the other thing, because there was two things. One that I want to update you on. The second one is, so this airport flyover, so they had a series of public hearings. Because this was a design build and they've altered some of what, they've been creative, they're going to come back and do a public hearing where everybody, the environmental impact, so they'll have an opportunity to be there. The engineers are going to have to describe everything. If they do what they told me they were going to do, it may even be that when you go in, you'll get these virtual glasses and you'll be driving the interchange. So that's going to happen pretty soon. I think they need a notice to proceed, and then they're going to call for the public hearings. I will notify the city, but I'm certain DOTD will notify them too. The other thing I wanted to mention, both you and Councilman Wilmot had contacted me on railroad track issues. And while the state doesn't have a lot of power, I went through several of their lobbyists. We were able to fix the railroad ties or whatever at Fillmore in the railroad. And I was promised that by May 31st that the one at Williams would be fixed. And as you all know, that still hadn't been done. So I put in a call. I'm waiting for their engineer, Mr. Dining, to call me back and find out why that, because I thought they were going to do it at the same time. When I was first told that was a cutoff date, that they both be done by that time, I realized that one hasn't been done, and let your constituents know, because I know that's why y'all contacted me.
Yes, and as it relates to that, I see where they have laid the wooden structure that they're going to replace, but it's been laying there for 2 months without any action. So I would obviously appreciate not only Williams Boulevard, but all of the railroad crossing going west. There's not that many because they shut down the majority of them. So there's not that many, but many of those, which I submitted to you, which I submitted to the railroad guy, which I submitted to a number of people, nothing. So if you can just check back on that, and as it relates to everything, as far as it relates to the Lincoln Manor drainage project, and it relates to the new terminal, that is something I want to get with you so we can talk later, along with State
We can do
Representative
that. I'd
Smith.
like to include the administration, you guys that oversee that area, represent that area, and bring the parish into, and maybe, force them to update us all.
Yes, because like I said, for the airport stuff, I'll be reaching out to you just like I've reached out before to the airport director to get some information to put something out. Because what I'm afraid of is happening is there are kind of rumors that gets out, and once they start getting out, then people are all over the place. So we have to try to back that up a little bit. So I look forward to having those conversation. Thanks again for all your support. And yes, I did know our friend Judge Centeni. Not only is he one of my friends too, we went to Our Lady Perpetual Help. I'm a South Carolina boy. Him and his family is for a long, long time. You're yourself. So all three of us have that Italian. May not look like all three of us.
You're
but
an
all-
honorary
but
paisan.
but all three of us have that too. So I appreciate a good cannoli myself. So thanks again, and I'll talk to you later, man. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. We have quite a few people who'd like to speak. Mayor Zahn?
I'll let the council finish. I see other council people. I don't want to go before y'all.
Okay. Councilmember Wilmot?
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, I just wanted to come back and circle back. You had mentioned Senator Martini, and I just wanted to echo those thoughts that you mentioned about Senator Martini. He's just, I served with him many years in Baton Rouge, and just seeing the legislation that man handled was incredible. Glad to be a part of it, and then the stuff that he passed was just overwhelming. My hat's off to him. When he's over there working, like you say, it's about relationships and so forth, and he's done quite a remarkable job. So I thank Senator Martini for that. And also I want to mention too, your form of communication with your constituents. I get your newsletter and so forth, and it's well done. So thank you for all the hard work and effort that you put in to communicate with your constituents and letting them know what's going on and being here today. Again, thank you for that. And the information is just valuable. Thank you very much for coming. That's all, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and you'll get your next newsletter next week, by the way. It's coming.
Thank you.
Councilmember Seguir?
Thank you, Madam President. Representative Static, yes, thank you for coming again today. As you do every session, when it's over, come wrap up. A couple comments. I know you first started off on the K76 pat on the back. I want to, like you said, the residents like watching it. And in working with them, we are very close to live streaming this council meeting through K76, not so much on the Cox channel, but through K76 and YouTube or whatever they work it out. But we're working to get a live stream of the council meeting. So that's a big plus to get the what's really happening immediately. The other thing, just comment, I know you mentioned about the TNC legislation. Yes, that was a pretty heavy bill to get across the state. It was a needed bill. I mean, there's no question, as each of the entities like New Orleans, Jefferson, and here in Kenner, when we took them on, it was just to regulate what was happening, not to go against them, but just to welcome them, but have the regulations. And the fact that since the majority of them do come to Kenner because of the airport, that we get our fair share of the expenses that we incur because of that. And that's why we do have, as you said, the highest, perhaps the highest, I guess it is, the return from them for the use of our infrastructure. But yeah, that was a bill that just needed to work its way through, and appreciate that it got passed this year so that the other smaller cities and areas in the state who never brought it any legislation forward to put some regulation, they now have some statewide regulation. Because that was, it's always the intent of anything of that nature, is to ensure that it's a fair working place for everybody, and that someone's new entity doesn't get an unfair advantage because they didn't have regulations that others in the same workforce do. So I thank y'all again for getting that worked out for those statewide issues on that issue. And everything else, I mean, like you said, you've gone through a lot, so appreciate it, and we got more to come, though.
No, and listen, thank you and Mayor Zahn for your work and this council on the TNC legislation locally. It was important. I know I had a conversation with Mayor Zahn early on, knowing that they had filed a bill that didn't have the fees in, that you guys needed to sign something early enough. But I thought it was patently unfair that they leveraged all the people who just signed contracts, and they said they would not go to other areas of the state unless they got a statewide contract, negating what they just agreed in negotiations with Kenner and New Orleans and Jefferson Parish. So we were able to force the right kind of compromise, the grandfathering. Look, the fees, mainly the airport, the fact that we get that can be utilized for street maintenance, whatever it is you guys use it for, but the city deserves that, and we were able to just keep it in place. So we appreciate what you guys did on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Segura. Councilmember Brannigan?
Just giving you a heads up. I want to build a football stadium at Bertolino. It went in this year. The administration and I will be back next year.
No, you gave me that heads up already, George. Thank you. No, and one of the things you can look at is trying to make sure too, you want to get some of these projects put in, I guess, Jefferson parishes, so that we get the full support from the rest of the delegation. And listen, these things usually are multi-year and they take some time. Danny, who you talked to, who I think is one of the big guns up there, was not able to put it together this year because it just it's got to grow a little bit and try to get some help. So you guys, whatever you need, please let me know, and we'll go through the process that it requires to try to get some funding for it.
We'll be back.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Hayes?
Joe, just thank you. Again, because of your experience here, you'll always be one of us.
That's right.
And because of what we do here, it really enhances what you do in Baton Rouge on our behalf. So again, thank you.
Well,
like
thank
everybody
you.
else
And
is
believe me,
saying to you.
it's one of the only reasons why I'm able to accomplish some things is because I sat up here for 8 years and learned it at this level. And look, it's where my heart is. I mean, that's what our government, our city government, the departments here are some of the best in the state. And there's a reason for that. And you wouldn't believe how some of the other governments are just not as well put together. I'll say it that way.
Thank you.
Representative Stagney, I just wanted to say thank you for all your work in the legislators. Thank you for sharing your work and the work on behalf of Kenner. And I'd also just like to point out that, Kevin Centeni brought the cannolis, but he also has a pizza named after him at Gendouces. So,
We're going to
he's
have to talk
at a higher
to them
level.
about that.
And Mayor Zahn.
Thank you, Council President. I appreciate it. Joe, just your help with the airport, your help with the flyover, it's been fantastic. You know that because conversations that you and I have quite often. The firehouse relocation, you were very instrumental in that. Of course, this is with your colleagues in the Senate and also that represent the city of Kenner. This legislative session, you've been fantastic with that again. In the last 2 years, we appreciate the direction that your office and your colleagues that represent the city of Kenner, where we've been going with that, that's helping us. You've heard me say that numerous times when we've spoken. I just don't get these opportunities except for once a year to thank you for this. I might have done it at the EOC. I might have thrown that in a little bit when you visit us, I think 3 times at the EOC. You were the representative, came from the state. We appreciate that, you coming down here for that. It shows that, coming from the Kenner level to where you've gone, coming from where I came from the Kenner level to back here to the Kenner level, and the help from the parish council, like I think Councilman Brennan said, Dominic and all his colleagues, coming over there, showing the people of the city of Kenner and the surrounding area that everybody cares. So that's the working relationship that you and I started off at in 2006, and here we are, and these are the things that the people of Kenner can benefit from. It's not these deals that are made or anything. It's the work that your office, this council, my office, and the parish council office are putting in. Where we do need a little more help, and some of the comments that you made, I appreciate that. You might have been told by Jefferson Parish that some of the things were in the Green Book, and such as the flooding in Lincoln Manor, which has been on that for capital outlay for 13 years. I think after 11 years, it was taken off, and we had to put it back on. But we've been having some issues there because obviously we don't control, nor do you, what gets to the Green Book. We only can submit, and then what gets from the Green Book to capital outlay. And I think that's where all the council needs to work with this administration, work with this gentleman. We've seen the output of work that he wants to put out, and our future state representative in North Kenner, where that's going. We need help from both of you all with our future senator for this area, along with Gary Smith, to make sure those things get from Green Book to House Bill 2. Your work has been fantastic. I think our work needs to be a little bit stronger with the parish administration to make sure those things are moving along, because we have had some things not go in a direction that we need to. No fault of yours. I am not faulting you. I'm not faulting the work that you've done. But I think you and I, along with the city council and our parish representatives, need to work a little bit closer together on that.
No, I appreciate that, and there may, and we'll discuss that later. There may be, an alternative avenue for
absolutely.
the city to take that would ensure that whatever your wishes are will at least be considered.
Right, absolutely. Just
And I want to say this too, Mayor. I've told him this before. I'm one of those people, I can be in a committee meeting, and if I see something that I think affects our citizens or you guys or the mayor, you ladies, I will call him up. And I've told him, listen, if I bother you too much, you let me know. But I want when I go to the governor or when I go before a committee, I want the relationship to be, they know I represent Kenner. These officials, the mayor, this entire body, we're speaking as one, and it makes a difference because one day they're going to come to you guys for something, and hopefully they have helped us before they've had to come and ask. So I want them to know that there's a great relationship and that I'm there representing the city.
And that's how I started this off. Those weekly phone calls that Joe and I have is because I do call him, but I get the majority of those calls come from Joe to me from the floor, stepping out of the floor, the area that they're in, and saying, how do you want this to go? What's the direction? And most of the time I've spoken to you guys. Y'all know where we are with it. It's how reciprocal this is, and a lot of people might look at this and say, this is a wonderful political love affair here. It's just that it's the relationship that gets things going and gets things moving for this city, every district, and with the two at-larges up there throughout the city, Kenner, which our residents benefit from. So thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank all of y'all for allowing me to be here and take the time to kind of go through this. And again, everybody has my cell number. Y'all know my office number. If I can get together with you on anything, I'll certainly do it. If there's a problem, I'll try to correct it.
Thank you. Thank you for taking your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Under the consent agenda this morning, we have item 1, approval of minutes, the regular council meeting of June 21st, 2019, and July 15th, 2019. Item 2 is approval of alcoholic beverage permit applications. We have none. Item 3 is approval of bingo and public gathering applications. Item 3A is application number 2173-19, Willistics Conditioning Center, to hold a public gathering on August 10th, 2019, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at 4228 Williams Boulevard. Item 3B is application number 2174-19, the Simmons family to hold a public gathering on September 1st, 2019, from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. for the purpose of a family reunion at Veterans Memorial Park. Item 3C is application number 2175-19, Knights of Peter Claver, to hold a public gathering on August 24, 2019, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. for the purpose of a picnic at Laketown Shelter 1 and 2. Item 3D is application number 2176-19, Divine Mercy Catholic Church, to hold a public gathering on July 30, 2019, from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. for the purpose of a peace prayer walk at 4337 Salentini Parkway. Item 3E is application number 2177-19, Copeland's of New Orleans to hold a public gathering on July 27, 2019, from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. in the Copeland's parking lot at 1319 West Esplanade Avenue. Item 4 is correspondence reports from the mayor, CAO, or department heads. Item 4A, at the request of the administration, a report from Mayor Zahn.
Thank you, Council President. We got a few things to go over today. We did a code sweep this past Wednesday in District 1 with the help of Greg Carroll's office, 2600 block to the 2700 block of Fayette, Salem, Kingston, and Greenwood. That was all in District 1. The code department, who does a great job, number of violations were about 24 and court summons of 4. That's a little up, so that means that we got to keep going back into that area, making sure that it's kept, where we need our constituents in District 1 that want it like that. So appreciate the code enforcement department, what they do. And also, Greg, I appreciate your help in helping us coordinate that. We did have a little street flooding, a little rainstorm. I think it was on Tuesday night. I think I was joined by a few of the council, I spoke to every council person up here during that. I think I met with Councilman Hayes and Councilman Brannigan at one part of that night after walking through some street flooding. This might come across wrong, what I'm about to say, but we need to let our constituents know, including us, if we don't know that, if the street is flooding, I'm not going to say it's good news, but I'm going to say that that's good that the house is not flooding. Because the streets, and Councilman Segura and I had this talk the other day, the streets are made to flood. Our job is to flood the street. Not our job is not to flood the street, but the job of the city of Kenner is to let it get from the streets into the drain pipes, into the canals, let the parish take over at that point and get it out of our canals. When you have excessive rainfall, so when the street floods, okay, it's working. I think we all do a better job of letting the people know that. It's working. But when the street floods and the drain may not be able to take on, or it may be clogged further down, which I think what we experienced, Councilman Brannigan, on Champaign and Medoc, that's where we have to come in and look at that. We were out there, him and I, and also the Director of Recreation, if you believe that, Chad Pitfield was out there with us, with our fire chief, because we had directors all over the place throughout the city. When that's happening like that and there's no suction, George and I saw it ourselves along with the chief. That's a problem we probably have to address. Because I called Dominic, our councilman, at that point, put him on speakerphone. He told the residents the pumps are on. That comes back to us that there's a problem there. No homes flooded to my knowledge. I'm not going to say that they didn't throughout the city, but in that area or your area, Glenn, there was no flooding. And I think District 2, there was no flooding. Might have happened in yours, Greg. But from that area to Lake Trail, where I saw Councilman Hayes out there with the pump that was put in by the parish and the state, we have to check on a few things on that. I know Glenn went out there again yesterday or the day before with Public Works Director, Deputy CEO, Mr. Tom Schreiner, to address the pump on the corner of Lake Trail and Vintage, because it had some issues too. But guys, I think what the biggest issue was, it stayed over so long and it kept pounding. There is no system in the world, or at least in this country, that would be able to handle that amount of rainfall. I still believe that the city of Kenner and the parish did a fantastic job of keeping anybody from flooding into their homes, anything excessive. I think George might have had one problem with a garage, and that's hearsay, but I'm not for sure that actually happened. I think we all need to get together, put out something together as a mayor and all council, a letter to our constituents, or maybe a Facebook post that explains how the system works. And if your street's flooding, sometimes it gets a little bit higher, it's working. We just don't want it to get past the sidewalks. I have a few more things that we want to talk about, but I'm going to yield just a little time because I was actually out ill yesterday when the cyber emergency happened, and Deborah Foshee, our Deputy CEO, actually grabbed that with the legal department, and also Doug Dote, Emergency Operations Director, ran with it. I know there was some meetings yesterday. Again, I was not here. I was in the hospital. I'm going to let Chris speak about that because she knows a lot more. The governor has stepped in, declared an emergency. This is something we have to take very seriously. This is the time to address this, and that's why Chris is going to go into detail. So if you bear with us for a few more things, the mayor comments are a little bit longer today.
As the mayor just mentioned, the governor has declared a state of emergency. Actually, I believe it might be the first ever in the state of Louisiana, in the history of Louisiana, to issue a cyber state of emergency. Is that correct, Mike? Do you understand it too? So, in brief, this week, at least 4 Louisiana parishes, including several school districts across the state, have been affected by this very seriously. Their computer systems have completely been shut down because of hackers who are involved with a ransomware cyber attack. So the mayor was very concerned about this in light of how serious it is, and yesterday he called for 2 informative employee meetings. So groups of employees could gather at 2 different times at our recreational facility at Esplanade Mall in the old Navy spot. And the presentation was prepared by our IT department assistant director, interim assistant director Mike Claus, and also senior tech Josh Holden did a great job of explaining what this ransomware cyber attack is all about. They offered an opportunity to explain the risk, and also for employees to ask questions, because this involves not only a risk here in the city of Kenner and our government computers, but also at home and your personal businesses and your personal computers at home. So they did a great job in presenting that, and employees did have some very important questions to ask, and they're still available if any of you have questions about this risk as well. So we want to thank the mayor for taking the initiative to help our employees understand what's involved here. But not only is a ransomware risk involved, there's also another virus that hackers are trying to get out there, and that is to pose as an employee to try to get your direct deposit information to transfer your paychecks to their accounts, to these false accounts. So please be aware of that. Do not open any unfamiliar or suspicious emails or attachments.
Thank you, Chris. 2 last things. We've been approached by the parish president. I was approached by the parish president on the possibility and basically a commitment to put an animal shelter in the city of Kenner. It was a possibility which became a commitment. I think that's a huge thing for the city of Kenner. I mean, we pay into that millage already for the animal shelter. I know they're looking at a few different sites, but they've looked like they've focused with the help of Dominic Impostata, my office, and also Councilman of District 2, Mike Seguin. I know the 2 at-larges know this. Somewhere in District 2, hopefully in front of our brake tag station. That is, not in front of it, off to the side of it. That would be a huge improvement to that area. I think it would help with some of the people that may not be adopting rescue dogs as quickly as possible, because it'll be high profile in Williams. So we're continue to work with the parish administration, and I've consulted with Dominic Impostata, because I have to go through the parish council along with Mark Spears. Not Mark's district, but it's Dominic's district. Dominic is in full support, along with Mark Spears, to put that in District 2 / the City of Kenner / District 4 for the parish, with high visibility for these rescue animals, dogs and cats. Hope y'all sharing that. I know most of y'all I've spoken to. I might have missed one of the agenda meetings to bring that up, the first one, but I knew Mike knew about that already. So you'll be hearing more about that, and the support to put that on Williams Boulevard is huge with Dominic and me, and also Mike. So a few of you all, Christy McKinney, but a few of y'all have asked for a, what does Romelli pick up in recycling? We figured the best way to do it, and I appreciate all of you all having patience as we worked through it, to put something together to show to the public what they actually do. We will post this out there in a list, but we thought KTV, brainchild of KTV and Chris Fortunata, was to use our Captain Clean mascot in a video that we can run on KTV, Facebook, throughout the city, and show people something cute that actually is informative. I want to say thank you to Chris, Charles, and Robin, and Kelly over at KTV. Did I forget anybody there?
That's it.
These 4 people for doing what they did. This is the first time you all have seen it, because I didn't want any criticism. Now, first time that you all have seen it, because I thought it was the best way to see it here at a council meeting. I don't know the schedule, but this will start running, and I think this is the best way to get it across to all of our residents, and then we'll list something with it. I watched it on a phone, so hopefully the words are a little bit bigger on the screen. I think it's be very effective for our constituents, and I think everyone will be happy.
This is a very brief 1-minute PSA, and it just simply explains the items that are now collected for recycling. So our KTV team put this together. We're revealing it today for the first time, and it'll start airing everywhere today.
And while we talk about KTV, let me just fit this in. So Joe made a comment about we couldn't, I don't think we can actually count or get some kind of a rating on it, but we do actually do it by views.
Nielsen Ratings does not track government access channels, but due to our new team that the mayor put in place last year with KTV and our Kenner Digital Media, we are able to track numbers of views of videos and photographs and hits on social media that actually goes beyond what you might see at the bottom of a picture where it says, 22 shares or 5 shares or whatever it is, because the actual views are a number that are counted off to the side. And Charles has been tracking that and keeping record of it, and it's actually off the charts for the city of Kenner. It's unprecedented, the exposure and the access that this team has been able to provide for the city of Kenner residents.
Our news conference, our little news update, not news conference, because some people criticize that as a press conference that we did. It was not a press conference, a news conference. Our little update that we did is from the mayor, the city council, where all of you all spoke in the parish and the state. That got how many views in like an hour? I mean,
Not a gajillion, but Charles actually has the numbers.
It's incredible the way people are watching what we're doing through this new system we've set up through KTV. So again, not just this, I think we all need to at times tell KTV they're doing a great job, Robin and Charles and Kelly, because what they put together in that little building that they're in, that little office that they're in, hopefully we can move them one day, they're doing an excellent job out of that small spot. And I think you're going to see it right here again.
Let's watch the video, and then Charles actually has those numbers of views that he can share with us.
So I think you see that that's going to be attractive to people. It's informative at the same time. We can also list it a little bit better and just do a little intro on that. I'm sure there'll be an intro when we run it. That is where we need to get the message across to our people. So I appreciate the council's patience. I did have a few calls besides Christy calling me about this, but she's the one that called the most. But I think the waiting was worth it, and I think you all agree that that's going to be effective to the people. Two last things. I'm almost finished. I want to recognize one of our district court judges from the 24th Court is here. Judge Scott Schlegel's in the back. Judge, thank you for being here and showing interest in what's going on in the city of Kenner. Last thing, Tuesday, open to the public, because on September 1st will be our 3rd annual Freedom Fest in District 3, Councilman Hayes. This is going to be 10:30. It will be a press conference at 10:30 in the morning at the Pontchartrain Center. It's open to the public. Hope all of you all can make it. I know my directors and the directors will be there. And we open it up to the public. I believe it's on the mezzanine level, Chris? And we're expecting, first time, we're expecting one of our special guests to be one of our performers. So that's odd that we get one of the performers that are actually going to perform. We're expecting that person, I'll just say that, will show up at the press conference to hopefully draw a little bit better crowd. It's on the mezzanine, Chris? The mezzanine? Yes. Mezzanine at the Ponce Train Center, 10:30 Tuesday morning, open to the public, obviously open to this council and our chief. Hope you all can attend. Thank you all. I'm done.
Thank you.
Oh, Charles has some numbers.
Exactly. How many is a gazillion?
You're going to find out.
It's a lot. First, I do want to come back full circle. I know, Councilman Carroll, you had asked me at the last meeting about the Cox situation. That was a Cox issue. It was a video processing card that they had to replace. There was nothing for the city to do on our end. So it is replaced. We're back on air. Everything's running properly. To give you the update, just in the 3 days of the emergency situation with Barry, on Thursday, the update with the mayor, yourselves, Mr. Stagney, as well as other Jefferson Parish members, we had 1,200 views just to that update. Then on Friday, we did a little feature segment out in the field with the mayor and some of you guys out assessing what was going on during the storm, damage, preventative measures. That received 2,200 views. Then two things came out on Saturday. One was a second updated briefing, which was 761 views, and then another feature on our Kenner Fire Department with their rescue unit that was sent up to Baton Rouge, and we went out to one of the fire stations to shoot that, and it was about 3,000 views. So basically Thursday through Saturday, strictly on Barry-related content, was 7,161 views. So I think we got a lot of information out, along with our PIO, Bob Ross, with everything that was shared from KTV, sharing the city's content. I would say we definitely reached the public and notified them on just about everything we could of what was happening during that potential tropical or legitimate tropical issue. And then since May of 2018, so you know, we've just passed 173,000 views to any video-related content on social media. So we are reaching the public worldwide, essentially, through those means, YouTube and our Facebook channel, Facebook page.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Carroll? Wait. Hold on. Councilmember Carroll now. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam President. And thank you, sir, for that update. My only response to that would be, obviously, we had some difficulties or challenges trying to locate someone from Cox during the duration of the storm and during our attempts trying to figure out what was going on. I would just ask them to give us a number, a contact, so we'll be able to reach them, because that becomes a major outlet to pass information on to the citizens. But if they don't pick the phone up, you know, we can't use it. So that's important, to get a number, a login or something, so you guys can do what you have to do to support us.
Yes, sir. As soon as we were notified, I was personally notified by Mr. Hayes that the video was not present. I emailed a gentleman by the name of Oscar. I don't remember his last name. Oscar Cade, thank you. And he replied fairly quickly. This was when we were at the EOC. And then it was trying to assess whose part was the error, you know, where was the error being caused. So that's when we went to the play-out system at Heritage Hall and determined we did not feel that it was on our end. And at that point, 6 or 7 other people from Cox were looped into the emails, and it did take about a week for them to get the proper personnel out and assess what was going on. Our IT department met with them at Heritage Hall to isolate what the issue was, and then Cox determined it was their issue, and they replaced the piece of equipment.
Okay, so as long as we're comfortable that there is someone that we can speak to
We do.
in an emergency, then we're good. I'm good.
Yes.
We all are good. Thank you.
Councilman, if I may, Charles, we did have response from Cox, and they did address the situation, and it was one of those little circuit cards that you might pull out of a computer, and it's green, it's got all the little wires and dots and everything soldered in there. So that was remedied as soon as they realized it was their
Correct.
issue. However, have you had contact yet with AT&T?
No, ma'am. There's not one individual. I've probably tried 6 or 7 different numbers that we have on record with former agreements with them, franchise agreements with AT&T, and not one human being have I spoken to other than a general customer service person, and they simply do not understand that we are a provider of content, not a customer. So when they try to loop me around to other individuals, it goes around in circles. And
So we will
nowhere.
continue that battle.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you, Ms. Fortunato. Thank you, sir. And my second was just to address a couple of the comments that Mayor Zahn mentioned as it relates to street flooding. One being that the idea of the city of Kenner to support our drainage system is for the water to come into the street. And I always use the example when I talk to people. It's like the baseball park, particularly at Buddy Lawson. The park is built so the water can come off of the field to ensure that play can continue in a reasonable time. That's the way it's built, so the water comes off. It makes sense for sporting events. The second is to get people to believe, and I don't know if we can ever do this, that if the water is not going in someone's house, that is the greatest thing that we want. But if God decides to make it rain for a long period of time, it will compromise any system. Now, people, for whatever it is, my tenure on the council, that is the hardest thing in the world for people to understand. And another example I use is if you turn your faucet on in your sink or whatever, if you let it keep running, eventually it will run over because you can't get it out. But when we get in those situations, people are people, and I get that, but just to have a little understanding of that, I think that's all we're asking, just to understand that. And now our only concern, like the mayor said, particularly in South Kenner, we are the most oldest part of the city, we still have some ditches. So it's important for us to maintain the scope of the ditches. It's important to maintain the drainage to ensure they are done on a regular basis. That is our part to make sure. If we do that, everything else, God making it rain and the water, the time of length that it rained and the water coming off to like a barrier to somewhat like they do in the parish, the water goes onto a playground at Mike Miley as opposed to going, that is what the system is built for. So I just ask that everybody have a little more patience and understanding with that and hold us to our job to make sure that the ditches are scoped, the drainage are done on a regular basis, and hold us to that. But the other two things is pretty much out of our control, and we pray that we don't have to deal with it too many times. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. I just wanted to say thank you for all of your reports, Mayor Zahn, and thank KTV for everything that they do. But I also want to say maybe we need to make a new video discouraging littering just from watching the recycling video.
We'll definitely work on that. I think that kind of like takes it all together. But I think there's a lot of things we can do with Captain Clean to make it fun for people to look at and a little effective. So that was the whole idea of Captain Clean being our brainchild along with Ramelli to get that going. So yeah, it reaches children. Children take a little interest in it. So look, that's not a bad idea to do a no littering campaign. And, you know, I remember at one time, what was it, Mean Joe
Mean Joe Green, I remember that. I was a child when that happened.
Mean Joe Clean.
Clean.
Here in the Kenner. So you were a child, that's right.
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Segur.
As we have this council in the past over various councils, we have had representatives from the utilities, Energy, AT&T, Cox, Atmos, who come and at our request and speak on their relations with the city. I do understand that this AT&T concern of not having someone to speak with is seemingly a concern. I know the last, I had Cox as new manager and government liaison here. We've had Patrick with Energy come. I'm going to reach out this week and to AT&T and invite them to our next meeting and see if they show up.
Thank you, Councilmember Segura.
Yes, ma'am. That will conclude the consent agenda.
Motion by Councilmember Wilmot, seconded by Councilmember Carroll. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Under the public appearance agenda this morning, we have item 9, public hearings for final passage. Item 9A is a public hearing regarding resolution number B 17010, a resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structures located at 3621 California Avenue, Kenner, Louisiana, shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal. Madam President, I received a request for a one-meeting deferral.
Motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Brennan, to defer for one meeting.
One more? Motion passes 7-0. Item 9B is a public hearing regarding summary ordinance number 12,544, an ordinance repealing ordinance numbers 11,195, 11,369, and 11,473, and establishing a new fee schedule for the public's use of Kenner facilities.
Motion by Councilmember Brannigan, seconded by Councilmember McKinney, to open the public hearing. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the council? Seeing none, motion by Councilmember Brannigan, seconded by Councilmember McKinney, to close the public hearing. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Motion by Councilmember Brannigan, seconded by Councilmember McKinney, to approve. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 9C is a public hearing regarding summary ordinance number 12,545, an ordinance approving the sale of a portion of unimproved 12th Street right-of-way situated between squares 103, 110, and 102 and 111, Kenner Heights subdivision.
Motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Hayes, to open the public hearing. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the council? Yes. Wendell?
Well, thank you, Council President. The Planning Department has a brief presentation regarding, this is for, the applicant in this case is Mr. A.J. Sotomayor, 1109 Williams Boulevard, Kenner, Louisiana, 70062. He is seeking to purchase two 60 by 300-foot sections of unimproved 12th Street from the west side of Maria Street to the Duncan Street right-of-way between squares 103 and 110, and from the east side of Maria Street to Oxley Street between squares 102 and 111, Kenner Heights subdivision, Kenner, Louisiana. He's proposing to purchase the subject rights-of-way to use for additional access to his property. Both of these unimproved sections are situated on the east and west sides of Maria Street and generally bounded by 13th Street to the north, Oxley Street to the east, Duncan Street right-of-way to the west, and 11th Street to the south. All of the land south of the 12th Street rights-of-way are developed as playing fields for the Butch Dewey Playground and Zone Recreational District. Nearly all of the land abutting north in Square 110 is developed as airport electronic navigation towers approved by Special Ordinance 11,033, while the land abutting the right-of-way to the north in Square 111 is undeveloped and zoned RR1 single-family residential. The applicant, along with the City of New Orleans, owns most of the land in Square 111, which is why he's seeking to purchase it. During the review process, the City of Kenner Public Works Department indicated that there is a drainage line which crosses under 12th Street between squares 111 and 103. Pursuant to this, the applicant has agreed to place a permanent servitude over the entire 60-foot wide 12th Street right-of-way, beginning from the east side of Maria Street and running east 120 feet, to allow access to this line for any maintenance and repair work that the city might need. No other utility companies had any facilities in either of the rights-of-way, nor any objections to the sale. And the City of Kenner has determined the unimproved rights-of-way are no longer needed for a public purpose. An appraisal was performed for each of the rights-of-way by Wayne Sandoz and Associates, dated December 28, 2018. Mr. Sandoz identified the value of the 60 by 300-foot section of 12th Street, located between squares 102 and 111 at $45,400, and the value of the 60 by 300-foot section of unimproved 12th Street right-of-way between squares 103 and 110 at $25,200, for a total cost of $70,600. That concludes the planning department.
Thank you, Director. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the council? Seeing none, motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Hayes to close the public hearing. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Hayes to approve.
Madam Chairman, we've received a request to amend this item, if we could, please. We're going to delete Section 7 and replace it with new language that will read, Section 7, that the proceeds received from the sale of property authorized by this ordinance be and are hereby dedicated as follows. Number 1, 24% shall be dedicated to the Kenner Police Department's Lost Fund, and number 2, 76% shall be dedicated to the City of Kenner's Lost Fund and shall only be used to pay for the administration of claims made against the City of Kenner.
Thank you. Motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Hayes to amend. Any discussion on amendment? If none, council members, please vote to amend.
Motion passes 7-0 to amend.
Council members, please vote to approve as amended.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 9D is a public hearing regarding summary ordinance number 12,546. An ordinance approving the sale of a portion of the unimproved Maria Street right-of-way situated between squares 150 and 151 and squares 158 and 159, Kenner Heights subdivision.
Motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Brannigan to open the public hearing. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Director?
Thank you, Madam President. The applicant in this case is Mr. A.J. Sotomayor, 1109 Williams Boulevard, Kenner, Louisiana, 70062. These are the purchase of a 60 by 100-foot unimproved section of Maria Street between squares 158 and 159, and a 60 by 150-foot unimproved section of Maria Street between squares 150 and 151. Kenner Heights subdivision, Kenner, Louisiana. The applicant is proposing to purchase the subject rights-of-way to use for additional access to his property. The two sections of unimproved Maria Street are situated on the north and south sides of 18th Street, generally bounded by Canal Number 5 to the north, Oxley Street to the east, Airport Access Road to the west, and the airport's runway protection zone to the south. The adjacent properties surrounding the two unimproved rights-of-way are zoned R1P Residential Plan Unit Development, with some of the surrounding parcels also zoned Special Ordinance. The lands surrounding these two rights-of-way are generally developed as single-family residential and small office warehousing, along with some vacant land, and is either zoned R1P or Special Ordinance. There's a large AT&T maintenance facility located north of the Maria Street right-of-way in squares 158 and 159. The airport's runway protection zone is located south of the Maria Street right-of-way between squares 150 and 151. The airport contacted the city and indicated that the northern boundary of the runway protection zone intersects some of the private property abutting 18th Street, including the Maria Street right-of-way being sold to the applicant. The airport indicated that they have no jurisdiction over these properties since they are not owned by the airport, but we're simply notifying the city so that we are aware of this situation. The airport indicated that they are not objecting to this sale. During the review process, Veolia Water indicated that they maintain 3 sewer mains that run under the Maria Street rights-of-way between squares 150 and 151 and squares 158 and 159. After discussions with the applicant, he agreed to place a permanent servitude of access over the entirety of both rights-of-way to ensure Veolia has full access to the sewer mains to service and repair them as needed. No other utility companies had any facilities in the rights-of-way or objections to the sale. The City of Kenner has determined the unimproved rights-of-way are no longer needed for a public purpose.
Thank you, Director.
Wait, I'm sorry. I was having a little trouble with the presentations not moving. There we go. The appraisal for these properties were performed by Wayne Sandoz and Associates dated February 22nd, 2019. Mr. Sandoz identified the value of the 150-foot section of Maria Street at $13,500 and the 100-foot section of Maria Street at $9,000 for a total cost of $22,500 for both. The applicant has agreed to purchase both sections at the appraised values. Thank you, and that concludes the...
Thank you. Apologize. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the council on this matter? Motion by Councilmember Segur, seconded by Councilmember Brannigan to close the public hearing. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Motion by Councilmember Segur, seconded by Councilmember Brannigan to approve.
Madam President, we've also received a request to amend this item as well. We will be deleting Section 7 and replacing Section 7 with that the proceeds received from the sale of property authorized by the ordinance be and are hereby dedicated as follows. Number 1, 24% shall be dedicated to the Kenner Police Department's loss fund, and number 2, 76% shall be dedicated to the City of Kenner's loss fund and shall only be used to pay for the administration of claims made against the City of Kenner.
Thank you. Motion by Councilmember Segur, seconded by Councilmember Brannigan to amend.
Motion passes 7-0 on the amendment.
Any discussion on the amendment? Council members, please vote to amend.
This is your vote to approve as amended. Motion passes 7-0. Item 9E is a public hearing regarding summary ordinance number 12,560, an ordinance authorizing a public hearing and approving the proposed fiscal year 2019 annual action plan of the Community Development Block Grant Program in the amount of $452,071 and the Home Investment Partnership Home Program Grant in the amount of $170,000 for the Community Development Department.
Motion by Councilmember Carroll, seconded by Councilmember Segur to open the public hearing. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the council? Seeing none, motion by Councilmember Carroll, seconded by Councilmember Segur to close public hearing. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Motion by Councilmember Carroll, seconded by Councilmember Segur to approve. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 10 is opening of bids. We have none. Item 11 is reclassification of zoning for final passage. We have none. Item 12 is other ordinances for final passage. We have none. Item 13 is resolutions and motions by council members. Item 13A is a resolution authorizing the mayor to make application to the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality Municipal Facilities Revolving Fund Loan Program for a loan to finance improvements to the wastewater collection, treatment, and disposal system of the city of Kenner in order to complete work pursuant to a compliance order, which loan will be represented by bonds to be pursuant to a compliance order, which represented by bonds to be issued by the City of Kenner and sold to the Department of Environment Equality and other matters in connection therewith for the Department of Public Works.
Motion by Councilmember McKinney, seconded by Councilmember Hayes to approve. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 13B is a resolution appointing Louis Tusa Jr. as Kenner Police Department Municipal Fire and Police Civil Service Representative for the term which ends July 30th, 2022.
Motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Brennan to approve. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 14 is items removed from the consent agenda. We have none. Item 15 is acceptance of contracts and similar matters approved by the mayor. Item 15A is summary ordinance number 12,557, an ordinance authorizing a cooperative endeavor agreement with Jefferson Parish School Board for the use of a portion of Lot 200A near Tom Benson School.
Councilmember Segura would like to speak.
I have a motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot. Go ahead, Councilman Segura.
Thank you. This cooperative endeavor is the culmination of something on the lines of a circle. What this is to allow us to put tot lot equipment and recreation, some other fashions of recreation equipment for little kids at what was called the Highway Park Playground. All of the decades that City of Kenner Recreation maintained a recreation program at Highway Park, it was actually land that was owned by the school board as part of the, at that time, Roosevelt Middle School. But as demographics changed over these years and the recreation program saw a decline of kids in the recreation program in that specific playground, they were moved to other playgrounds, more likely Green Lawn across Williams. The City of Kenner, I think about a year and a half ago or so, we determined that there was no use for the city to maintain what was at the time an expired cooperative endeavor agreement, so we let the property return back to the school board. The tot lot equipment that the city had on there was old and needed to be removed for safety factors, so it was. And as to be expected, though, we've got myself, Councilman Wilmot, who lives in that area. We received a lot of comments from moms who were wondering where they could now take their kids close to play on these equipments. So trying to resolve that concern went through a litany of options. One, do we have any other city land in that subdivision of Highway Park? No. Did we have any lands that we could purchase? No. I contacted the school board and attempted to purchase a portion of the playground, but they had their ideas that they wanted to maintain their full right to the whole playground.
Good.
So subsequently, it circled back for us to do this cooperative endeavor to get a portion of that land to allow us to put tot lot equipment back on it. The process of the cooperative endeavor took us a little bit of time because as two government entities, negotiate with their attorneys, points are made and have to be worked out. The biggest concern was, on my part, if I was going to use council district funds to replace the tot lot equipment, which was at this point now, any tot lot equipment anywhere in the city is upwards of $100,000 because of the equipment and the covers we put over them now. It became concerning to want to put that much money into a fixture on property that the city did not exclusively own. But through this cooperative endeavor, I was able to work out through the school board and their attorneys as well as our attorney, language in the cooperative endeavor that says that this is a 25-year endeavor. And the reason for the 25 years is because the tot lot equipment has a lifespan of about 20 years. So this will cover us through the lifespan and a little bit beyond of the equipment. Also in this cooperative endeavor agreement is protection for city funds that are going to be used to purchase this equipment, that if the school board, for their reasons, chose to ask to cancel or ask us to move off of the property anytime before the lifespan of the equipment ended, that we would not infer a loss. So the current language allows for a sliding scale that says, depending on if it was to occur, in what year, was how many years remaining, the school board would reimburse the city a certain dollar amount. So this way we can get the full value of the cost of the equipment that's going to go there. Now, what's going to go there is a very nice tot lot equipment, and as I said, is the current mode. It has a nice cover over it to protect it from the sun and the rain and shade it when the young kids are playing on it. We also I'm also remodeling. There's a batting cage that's going to be repurposed from a batting cage to a covered bench, picnic table type of setting. So parents who are there with their kids will have a place to sit down, relax while they watch their kids play, and perhaps even bring lunch and have lunch there. There will also be some, and we're still working on finalizing the detail, but a second piece of equipment in the lines of exercise for the parents, the moms that go there to watch the kids. Instead of just sitting and watching, perhaps we'll have some exercise equipment that they can participate on and spend their time while they're there exercising. So with this cooperative endeavor and the safeguards that are in there for the protection of the city funds, I see that this should become a premier location back in the Highway Park subdivision for parents and young kids to go and have some recreational activity. So with that, I just want to certainly encourage the council members to approve this cooperative endeavor. Later on, in first reading, will be some of the purchases of this equipment, which will come up for final purchase at our next meeting. And then somewhere, unfortunately, when the school season starts, will get installed. As another component of the cooperative endeavor is that the students at the now Tom Benson School, the old Roosevelt School, will have access to this equipment during their recess and break periods during the day. So that way, now that Tom Benson is a kindergarten through 12th grade school, the young kids can during the daytime also go and utilize the equipment. So with that, I encourage a positive vote on this, and we'll bring some recreation for kids back to Highway Park. Thank you.
Councilmember Wilmot?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. Of course, I will be supporting this legislation. I do live near Highway Park, and then this is a change. Times are changing. As far as the demographics in the area, they have changed. I know we raised my family there for many, many years, and my daughter went through all the programs, sports programs in Kenner. We did numerous programs throughout the years, and it's just very fond that I think back to those days. And Highway Park was very instrumental. Of course, the CEA was not renewed, the corporate endeavor agreement. And I know it gets somewhat confusing. There are issues dealing with the school board with that. It was not renewed. However, there are sports still being played there. Again, the demographics apparently have something to do with that. And as far as the tot lot's concerned, I think it's a great improvement and enhances, and it's going to be, for the public. I think that's very good. We have to have something along this line, and I appreciate Councilman Segur's help with getting this legislation done. Madam President, that's all I have. I'm just going to support this legislation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember. And to briefly wrap it up, Councilmember Segur. Councilmember.
Oh, I thought you were speaking. Okay. Yeah, just unfortunately, I failed to mention that, it wasn't just my work that brought this about. As I've mentioned, Councilman Wilmot's discussions with me on his concerns. But School Board Rep Sandy Denopoulos-Bosarge played a big role, along with the School Board President Larry Dale, and then certainly the Superintendent, Dr. Cade Brumley, and Recreation Director Chad Pitfield, as well as the City of Kenner's Legal Department, Eric Munn and Ms. Lee Roussel. I want to thank all of y'all for your contributions to work out and gel this cooperative endeavor and put the equipment there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Council members, please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Item 15B, summary ordinance number 12,558, an ordinance approving the purchase of Bullseye equipment from NAFECO for firefighter training in an amount not to exceed $10,725.
Motion by Councilmember Carroll, seconded by Councilmember Brennan to approve. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 15C is summary ordinance number 12,559. An ordinance authorizing the utilization of Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office Contract 19-JUL-1801 with Lamarck Ford Incorporated and Courtesy Ford to purchase vehicles on an as-needed basis in an amount not to exceed $1 million for the life of the agreement for the Kenner Police Department. Madam Chairman, I've received a request to remove this item from the agenda.
Yes, thank you. Motion by Councilmember Segur, seconded by Councilmember McKinney to remove. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 15D is a resolution approving change order number 3 to the contract agreement with Frisch's Electric Company Incorporated dated March 19, 2018 regarding the wastewater treatment plant number 3 generator banking project, increasing the contract amount by $65,336.54, increasing the contract time by 97 calendar days, and accepting the project as complete by the Department of Public Works.
Motion by Councilmember Hayes, seconded by Councilmember Brennan to approve. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 15E is a resolution approving amendment number 3 to the engineering agreement with Digital Engineering and Imaging Incorporated dated December 4, 2013, concerning the installation of a new force main from Chateau Transfer Station to wastewater treatment plant number 3, increasing the agreement amount by $67,739 and extending the term of the agreement through December 4th, 2021 for the Department of Public Works.
Motion by Councilmember Brannigan, seconded by Councilmember McKinney to approve. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 15F is a resolution approving amendment number 4 to the engineering agreement with Hartman Engineering Incorporated dated December 4, 2013, concerning the installation of a new force main from Chateau Transfer Station to wastewater treatment plant number 3, increasing the agreement amount by $119,428 and extending the term of the agreement through December 4, 2021 for the Department of Public Works.
Motion by Councilmember Brannigan, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot to approve. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 16 is ordinances and resolutions in summary for first reading. Item 16A is an ordinance authorizing the utilization of state contract number 4400144101 with U.S. Foods Incorporated to purchase food and food-related supplies for the City of Kenner concession stands in an amount not to exceed $250,000. Item 16B is an ordinance approving amendment number 1 to the agreement with ISI Water Company dated April 5th, 2019 for utility revenue enhancement services, which increased the not-to-exceed contract amount by $105,000 for the Department of Public Works. Item 16C is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Pontchartrain Materials Corporation, LLC, to supply limestone in accordance with seal bid number 19-6490 in an amount not to exceed $50,000 annually for the Department of Public Works. Item 16D is an ordinance authorizing the utilization of Jefferson Parish contract number 55-18278 with All Star Electric Incorporated to provide emergency repair and/or replacement of East Bank Jefferson Parish traffic signal systems in the amount not to exceed $100,000 annually for the Department of Public Works. Item 16E is an ordinance authorizing the utilization of existing state contract number 4400014520 with Gulf Coast Oil and Supply LLC to purchase oil, lubricants, and other related items for city vehicles on an as-needed basis not to exceed $75,000 annually for the Departments of Fleet Management, Fire, and Police. Item 16F is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Beacon Air Conditioning in the amount of $5,780 to furnish and install a 1.5-ton Mitsubishi Mini Split to provide supplemental cooling for the IT department in accordance with telephone bid number T19-2675 for the Department of General Services. Item 16G is being removed from the agenda this evening at the request of the Chief of Police. Item 16H is an ordinance approving the plan of re-subdivision of lots 8 through 22, square 43, into lot 22A, square 43, Crestview Office and Industrial Park. Item 16I is an ordinance approving a general advertising sign in an LI Light Industrial Zoning District for Patrick Round on Lot 26, Square 41, Crestview Office and Industrial Park subdivision. Item 16J is an ordinance approving a planned unit development for a self-storage facility located on Lot 230-A2 Highway Park subdivision, which property is zoned C2 General Commercial. Item 16K is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Han Enterprises Incorporated to furnish and install new play equipment at Highway Park in accordance with seal bid number 19-6491 in an amount not to exceed $94,689 for the Department of Parks and Recreation. Item 16L is an ordinance authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $1,750,000 excess revenue certificates of indebtedness Series 2019 of the City of Kenner, State of Louisiana, prescribing the form and fixing the maturity thereof, and providing for the security and payment of said certificates of indebtedness in principal and interest, approving the certificate of determination and certificates purchase agreement relating to the certificates and certain other matters in connection therewith. Item 16M is an ordinance authorizing the use of the State of Louisiana contract number 44000750 with Genuine Parts Company doing business as Napa for the purchase of automotive parts on an as-needed basis. Item 16N is an ordinance accepting the responsive bid received from Gendusa Glass Works Incorporated to furnish and install mirrors at Esplanade Recreation Facility in accordance with letter bid number 19-1583 in an amount not to exceed $7,876.50 for the Department of Parks and Recreation. Item 16O is an ordinance accepting the responsive bid received from Han Enterprises Incorporated to furnish and install new shade cover at Laketown Playground in accordance with seal bid number 19-6484 and an amount not to exceed $44,995 for the Department of Parks and Recreation. Item 16P is an ordinance approving amendment number 4 to the engineering agreement with Kyle Associates LLC dated October 21st, 2013 concerning the installation of a new force main from Chateau Transfer Station to wastewater treatment plant number 3, increasing the agreement amount by $101,100 and extending the term of the agreement through December 4th, 2021 for the Department of Public Works. Item 17 is reports from the council and/or special committees.
Councilmember Wilmot.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to mention that the Lanyap Dog Show is going to take place next week, August 1st through the 4th. It's Thursday through Sunday. It's free to the public for spectators, so if you haven't been before, it's really, really nice, and it's a must-see for dog lovers. That's all, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Carroll.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to thank everyone, the administration, particularly General Services, for this past weekend where the city of Kenner, along with the world, commemorated Apollo 11 and also the 20th year anniversary for the City of Kenner Science Space Center. We had 2 or 3 different showings. We had an astronaut, we had a physicist out there to explain to us the process of space, the process of spaceships and everything. And it was even with the rain, it was well attended, and it just goes to show you that you just never know people interest. Also, the Puncher Train from the University of New Orleans, the Puncher Train society that deals with space and stuff like that. It was fantastic. We look in the future to have more events like that. We have a fantastic planetarium. From the words of the astronaut and other people, you know, we have one of the best in the country, the planetarium. So that is something we should be proud of. It is something that I think we should build upon for our children and for old people like myself and Councilman Segura to be able to benefit from that. So, you know, again, thanks for that. A lot of children just didn't know about Apollo 11 because it was so many years ago, 50 years ago. So we appreciate that. Thanks for all the hard work. We look forward to other events out there, and you know, we want to be part of that for the city of Kenner and for the state of Louisiana. Thank you. Still haven't gotten the pictures yet, so I can put on my Facebook page, but I'm gonna get them eventually, I'm sure. But thanks everyone for their hard work. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilmember Carroll. I would say that I remember it too, but I don't remember it because I wasn't born. Thanks.
You don't remember it.
Councilmember Brennan.
Thank you, Council Chair. Just a quick note, I'm assuming everyone received the emails from former Chief Nick Kajemi, who retired from the Lake Pontchartrain position, and just to thank him for all his hard work, not only there, but with the city of Kenner. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Brennan. And I would just like to say thank you to Councilmember Carroll for pointing out the Rivertown ceremony that they had for Apollo, for the Apollo 11. While I wasn't able to attend, I always loved going to the Rivertown. And that's actually one of the first things that I wanted to do was become an astronomer. So one of those, you know, I switched obviously from wanting to work in space to wanting to work with people. So thank you very much, and I appreciate it. Councilmember Carroll. Wait, what? Thank you, Councilmember Brennan. Councilmember Carroll.
Thank you, Madam President. One quick thing. If we could have someone maybe give us the schedule for the planetarium and the museum, because every opportunity we get to promote it, I think we should. So the schedule itself, Ms. Fauché, if you can elaborate, we'd appreciate it.
It's on the website, and I don't actually have it with me right now, but what I will do is send it to each of you, and then we'll also have it for the next meeting to be able to announce the dates.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilmember Carroll.
Yes, ma'am. Item 18 is new business. This item was taken earlier. Item 19 is unfinished business and motions to reconsider or remove from a tabled position. We have none. Item 20 is persons wishing to address the council on special subject matters.
Ms. Cheryl Lacano Bourgeois, please approach. I'm sorry. Lacano, sorry, I apologize. Ma'am, I'll ask you just to state your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Cheryl Bourgeois. I live at 2111 Illinois Avenue in Kenner. I'm here because I wanted to thank Councilman Segura, who introduced me to Mr. Muhammad, who has been the dream code enforcement person that I have been waiting for in Kenner for 15 years. I have had an issue on my street with a gentleman that had, and I do not exaggerate, a boxcar size container in his driveway for 15 years. For 15 years, my neighbors and I have tried to have it removed. Somehow he managed to evade the code enforcement people, but I'm here to tell you folks, it's a new day in Kenner with code enforcement. I am so proud of y'all, and I am so grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's a beginning. It kind of still looks like Fred Sanford lives there, but it's okay. It's a beginning, and I do appreciate it, and I wanted to let Councilman Segura and Mr. Mohabbat, and of course, the mayor, thank you for all of the things that y'all contributed. It was all the little parts working together, and it worked. So thank you. And that's all I have to say.
My name is Greg Tapp, live at 3720 West Loyola Drive here in Kenner. I just got that I want to take the opportunity to thank all the men and women that worked so hard to prepare Kenner for the Barry storm. Being a resident and seeing these folks on the street going around checking these drains, checking for debris that could be flying around, all that was being taken care of. I also was encouraged by the involvement by not only the mayor and his administration, but it was encouraging to see the council members out there wheeling around as well. Because it told me that there was a team out there that was trying to make sure that Kenner would be protected in the event that we got hit by Barry. And I think that's important. I know that we can't control the water. We live in a fishbowl. And with the levees around us, the water has nowhere to go but into those canals. And those of us that live through Kenner knows what happens when a parish official makes the decision to pull everybody out, because we saw why our homes were flooded. But at least we have the effort that if Jefferson Parish did forget to turn the pumps on, y'all were out there and y'all would have known it, and y'all would have reacted very quickly and not allow it to affect the neighborhoods as bad as it could have. Luckily, we didn't hit Barry, or it didn't hit us. But I think it's good to know that at least, as I would state it, I know I'm a very negative person with you guys, but I thought this was a very proactive move by everyone. And I was more encouraged by how the employees of Kenner, those guys and women that were out there doing the work, they were doing it with a smile on their face, like they knew they were doing something good for the residents. And I just wanted to point that out. I honked at probably every one that I passed, and I passed quite a few. But just to see that attitude of willingness to get it done and get it done right. I mean, I saw one stop because there was something on the side of the road that he knew would blow into the road or something if it did hit, and actually picked it up. I never saw that before. I always see him just passing by. But it looks like everything has changed. And I just want y'all to know how much I appreciate it, and I'm sure everybody else does, because I saw it firsthand.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Mr. Taft, don't leave. If you're trying to cultivate a reputation as a negative human, you're failing. Because what we have found is that if you're bringing it to our attention, we probably need to look at it. A lot of people don't really know the role you played in our getting the Economic Development Department up and running, because you came in the beginning and said, these are the questions people are going to ask. You didn't say to me, you guys are terrible. You said, here's what people need to know. And you helped me get the information out there and helped us frame the information so that we were going forward. And it's super successful so far. So if you want us to pretend like you're negative, we will, but it's just not true. Thank you for everything you do for the city of Kenner.
That's fine, thank you.
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 47 years. I want to talk about the lease with the Recreation Department in the Esplanade Mall. $3,777.38 a month, a year to 2 years, March being the deadline next year to renew for another year. Also, the word out on the street is that there may be a plan in place to relocate City Hall into the old Macy's building, which would require another lease. That one would be very long-term as opposed to short-term with the Recreation Department. Anybody can confirm this or you can deny it. But if this is true, it appears to me that this may be a local government bailout of that mall. And I would like to know what our long-range plans are for our Recreation Department. Second, when Representative Stagley was up here giving his presentation, I heard my state senator's name mentioned a few times, Danny Martini. Too bad y'all couldn't get him down here to explain why he sponsored legislation to give judges a pay raise that makes six-figure salaries. A bunch of them, I have yet to figure out what they do for those six-figure salaries. Whereas there was legislation to raise the state's minimum wage from $7.25 an hour federal wage to $9, but no one would even look at that. So I would have liked him to come down here and explain to us how that took place, why he supported a pay raise for those judges. No one up there would even look at raising the minimum wage in this state, when 40% of the working people in the state of Louisiana have no disposable income, which translates to almost 700,000 people. And what the big travesty is, Louisiana is one of the richest states in the entire nation in natural resources, but we are the poorest, or one of the poorest, last in every major category there is, including education. Anybody got any comments, any questions? If anybody would like to deny that there is a plan in place, or there isn't, to relocate this chamber to the old Macy's building, you can say either it's true or it's not true. Just confirm or deny. And which leads me to believe, what would be the logic in this anyway? We own this building. Why would we want to vacate a building that we own or property that we own to enter into a long-term lease for some big bucks in the old Macy's building, if that's true? Anybody got any comments, any questions? Thank you.
So a few answers to some of those, and I know Councilman Brannigan probably wants to chime in at one point about District 4, on where we're going with District 4, what we've done in District 4, plus also Danny Martini. Excuse me. The Department of Recreation lease, absolutely. We just presented that the other night, just showed where we are with it. You know that we're already there.
I'm having trouble hearing you, Mazan. Can you speak up a little bit or speak into the mic? Is something wrong with your mic?
No, it's me. I'm recovering from an illness from yesterday. So
I'm sorry.
I'll try to speak a little bit louder. The recreation gymnastics lease, absolutely, we've done it. You know about that. You were here when the council passed the lease. So let me just give you some details that I gave Chateau Civic Association the other night, which was, I have to say, and I think Councilman McKinney and Councilman Brannigan would agree, was totally accepted and digested by them, and not one person there had a head going this way. They were just going all up and down because they were happy with what we were saying. The other night, last Friday night, they did a karate show, I think, competition or gymnastics, either one. They had probably 300 people in the Old Navy. I would just call it the Old Navy site for which is now our gymnastics program. That's probably the most people. I'm gonna go out on a limb, but I'm probably pretty right on this. That's probably the most people that mall has seen on a Friday night since before Katrina. So if you're going to be concerned about, are we trying to bail people out? First of all, with the recreation deal, we absolutely had to move our kids because that building has some issues. We've discussed that with this council publicly. I've discussed this with this council before we even presented to this council. I believe that was a 7-0 vote, including the District 1 councilman supported that. The District 1 councilman even offered some funding to the District 4 councilman who put funding up from his capital account to make this work. So I wouldn't call it a bailout. I would call it a need for our kids first with the Old Navy. I don't ever want you to leave from here and think that, am I not also doing it to help business? You can quote me. Absolutely. Because if we don't help that mall some kind of way, and this was the perfect example to get started, putting our kids in a better place was first and foremost. But also helping business, absolutely. Because when we increase business, some people might want to call it a bailout. I don't think you actually called it a bailout. You're trying to make sure it's not a bailout. It is a friendship with the economy, with the mall, to make sure that our sales tax increase, so I never have to come to this council and ask for anything else in any other kind of tax form. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make sure our sales taxes increase. Let's talk about the revenue, though. $37.50, I believe, is the monthly rent. That's taking in about a little bit over 500 kids right now. Because of the bigger space, going from roughly 6,000 square feet to 14,000 square feet, roughly. These are rough numbers. Those kids will go from 500 with the applications that are there right now, and with Chad Pitfield, the Director of Recreation, who came to me and George with this a while back, thinks he can bring in 800 kids. So that goes from bringing in what we're doing right now to much more. So we will take $37.50 a month, what we're paying, but we're going to make $8,000. So do the math there. We're benefiting by at least $4,000 something dollars. That maybe close to $5,000. That is something good for us. We can take that money and put it back into other programs there or throughout recreation. Everything that's going in, this was a concern, or not a concern, but an ask of Councilman Wilmot and Councilman Carroll, and I think most of the council had this question. Most of the things that we put in there, we can actually take out if we ever needed to. The flooring, all of our equipment we own. Chad Pitfield was very creative. He took the old Navy shelving on the walls, and instead of having a contractor come in and put up all new walls, he actually put that shelving as a barrier wall where we can actually put shelves on it like Old Navy had and actually have the kids put their things on there. So he's cutting corners also, not at the risk of safety, but cutting corners where he can, using things that are there. I think he has also reached out to Damien, the general manager of the mall, to actually go into the Macy's building and pull out some of the equipment, some of the shelving there that he can, or clips for the shelves that he can actually use without having to go spend taxpayer money. So anything that's been spent has been predominantly from the $50,000 that George gave to the Recreation Department, which went into property that we can move, pads, you probably know more than me, flooring, other things that we can actually pick up and leave if we ever have to. But I'm going to tell you, if we're making close to $5,000 a month, anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 a month, I don't see a need to move. So if it's a bailout, it's a bailout that's working for our kids. So I think it's really, really good. Macy's, you'd be behind information if you hadn't heard it already from probably us. Because I think we've discussed it. I know I've discussed it publicly at civic meetings that I've probably been in every district. Probably, maybe you weren't there at one of those, I don't know. I hear the chatter. We're still in the stages of getting the reports on these buildings. Just so you know, we're in about 15 different locations for city government. That's a cluster. someone like you that's worked in the business field must know that, when you're trying to manage that and when this council is trying to legislate that, it's a nightmare. That's one thing. The condition of these buildings that have been left untouched, and basically from constituents like you and I agree, that would rather see, things go into infrastructure for our constituents instead of these buildings. But when you don't do that, at some point, our residents have to understand we can't meet the cost of the needs of repairs at this point. Before anybody sees this council will see the final report, meetings with me and my administration, with the contractor we hired, 3 at a time coming in, which will happen, I would think, within the next month. Those reports will be ready. We'll bring them in and explain to this council, which I think this council pretty much shares at this point, it's costs more to stay than to leave. So before anybody goes to that podium, and it's easy to say, it's, why would we want to do that? And I hear the chatter out there, and that's fine. We'll go from the council to the public with public hearings. Believe me, this will be a major thing. It's potential right now. Do we have to move? Yes. Do we have to move to Macy's? No. But if somebody else wants to bring me a Macy's building that size in the city of Kenner that costs less than what we've figured out to go pay rent, then, Mr. Morella, I'd be glad to form a committee and put you on the head of it and find out if there's one out there. But I don't think you want to do that. I don't think a lot of people want to do that. I think people trust this administration, this council, to go out there and say, the council has looked at this, the administration has looked at this, it's worthy enough to bring to you, constituents, and move. Move for the safety of the people that are coming in here. First, the safety of the employees that are working in these buildings and where we have to put them, and to pay less in rent than to pay in repairs. Don't quote me yet on what the numbers are, because we've got to get those numbers together, but I think you're going to see, and I think this council shares, that it's cheaper to pay rent than to stay here. Because what I'm going to have to do is come back and say, okay, guys, we got to pull capital projects off the streets from our people so we can repair buildings that we're in. That probably doesn't go along pretty good with the public, including this part of the public. I'd rather see it on the streets. So as the CEO of the city, and these guys as the legislative branch of the city, I think we all agree it's cheaper to move than to stay. Give us a little patience. I don't think you have any reason to doubt us on the things that we're presented here. Everything on this administration, this council, have been very open to the public. We've kept everything. I just had Greg Teff tell me up there that is probably the best he's seen a mayor and a council, and each and every one of these council people were on the street for Barry. That's probably not something that happens in the past. I was on the street. My administration was on the street. They were in the EOC. We told y'all where we were. If we had some conspiracy over here that we were trying to just go move to a larger building, I think you're looking at the wrong mayor and the wrong council. So that is a consolidation of government, a safety part to put government, and a cheaper end for our constituents by doing that. We're not ready to go into any more detail. Council will be the first ones to see it, and then the public will see it, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
We looked at this, and the bottom line is, it's not like we had a whole bunch of businesses beating down to do us to get into the Esplanade Mall. When you look at the history, most people have been moving out. So when we got together with Chad and the administration and looking at this potential move from the gym to the Old Navy site, when you look at the number of children that we could not accommodate and where we think the programs will go, it's going to be a positive cash flow even though we're paying rent on the place. And so when you look at the numbers, as long as the bottom line is more than where we were before, I'm good with that. I'm a numbers guy. I'm a spreadsheet guy. And when Chad and I sat down and talked, and we looked at where it would be if we doubled the program, where it would be if we tripled the program, the numbers just fly off the wall. The other thing that it does is, you like Ben said, we had 300 people in the mall Friday night, whatever night it was. they haven't had 300 people running around the mall probably in the last 2 months, I wouldn't think. We have a business that's in there that wants to move closer to where this facility is because they see the handwriting on the wall. In order for commercial to take off, you need traffic flow. This provides a lot of traffic flow to that area that they didn't have before. When I decided to put $50,000 up, we talked about it's not going into money. The money's not going to be spent where we can't take what we're buying with it, okay? So Chad has done a great job at making sure that, if we have to move 2 years from now, that money, they're not coming back to George and asking for $50,000 more. We're going to take what's there and use it again. And, it's a process, and we're in a process that, yes, do we want the Esplanade Mall to be successful? You better believe it. The amount of sales tax revenue that we get out of the Esplanade Mall now with hardly any traffic is phenomenal. When you look at Target and Dillard's and the other stores that are in there. So I really believe that this enhancement, this move is going to be positive, and it's based on numbers that Chad and Ben and I talked about over a long period of time, okay? I believe that it will help the surrounding area because if the mall starts to come back, it's going to help the other commercial developments. I ran on commercial revitalization, and that's one of the things that's close to my heart because we need Chateau and West Esplanade. We need the Esplanade Mall to generate sales tax to move our city forward. I look into a lot of things. I look at the details and make sure that when you calculate the dollars out, when we take just the people on the waiting list, and there's probably another 25, 30% of that number that didn't get on the waiting list because they knew they would never get in. I mean, the numbers just fly off the table. I can't imagine this thing costing us money, even though we're paying rent, it's costing us money. But when you look at the increased participation and the success of these programs, it's going to be phenomenal. I really think it's a positive, or I wouldn't have been for it. If you have any other questions, you got my cell phone number.
Yeah, just one more comment from me, and then Deborah Foshee has a comment too. So, just this past week, I've gotten some calls from some tenants in the mall, and one was first, and I called the mall management, the mall owner, Ashley, just again this morning. I spoke to him. They want to move outside of the Old Navy building. That shows how this is going to progress and be a chain reaction toward other businesses. By them wanting to do that, and obviously it's something that's it's a food service vendor because they heard 300 people at the mall. Now, there wasn't 300 kids, but still, those kids got there with their parents, so they're wanting to be outside the mall. We're becoming that attraction at the mall. That was the philosophy on the Macy's move. If you have to move to some place where it helps business. Bailout is a terrible word. I don't agree with bailouts. I agree with economic development. That is what we're doing. I'm going to call it economic development. If anybody, including you, choose to call it a bailout, well, give us 2 or 3 more years and see if you still call it a bailout then. There's one more part that was important for consolidating government that Deborah wants to talk about.
Actually, a couple things, Mr. Al. That question about purchase versus rent is such a good question, and everybody's asking that. And I think it causes us to kind of look at the heart of the difference between purchasing and renting is how you tie up your capital. And so this isn't our capital. This is your capital. This is the money that the public is paying. Do we want the public to tie up their capital in buildings that we sit in and we cannot afford to repair? Or do we want to tie up the capital in streets and roads and bridges and plumbing and infrastructure? So where does the capital that the public gives us, where does that need to go? With respect to this particular building, with respect to Old Navy, yesterday when we had to do the cyber emergency meetings and we had to call out 50% of the city employees. 50% of our employees had to show up at 1:30, and the other 50% of our employees had to show up at 2:30. And do you know the only place that we had access to where we could accomplish that? Old Navy. So although that was not our intent, guess what we have now? We also have a public meeting space that we need to use. So we're doing the very best we can with the public's money, and I think that decision about how to invest it, do we want to put all that money to make these buildings safe for our employees? Because it's going to be a lot of money, and it's going to be a lot of projects that we should be doing we won't be able to do for years and years and years. I'm sorry that there was so much deferred maintenance. I'm sorry that these buildings got into this condition, but now here we are. So we got to figure out what to do. We will not take a single step, Mr. Owl, without everybody knowing what we're doing and everybody having a chance to weigh in. So thanks for bringing those questions up.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Nina Rowland. I reside at 2103 43rd Street. And I only have three things, well, four actually. The first is to thank my district councilman for a sincere thank you to everybody that did everything recently, and he was so brief, it was refreshing. The other thing is the thing that was removed without any reason about purchasing things like piggybacking on an agreement with Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office. I don't know why it was removed, but I was going to ask a question about it because I was looking at some of the supporting documents, and it looked to me like the life of the agreement expires this month. That's why. Yes, that's why? Okay. And another thing that's kind of a rhetorical question, I support economic development in the city. I love living in Kenner. But I wonder what's going to happen to all of these newly proposed self-storage units that are popping up everywhere, not just in Kenner and not just in Metairie, I mean everywhere. My concern is primarily with Kenner, though. Down the road, 10, 15, 20 years, if there is not the same need for those, what's going to happen to all of this vacant commercial real estate? I'm not asking for an answer. I'm asking for y'all to think about it. And the last thing is, I want to say thank you. I think, generally speaking, our city's doing really well, and in large part, it's because of y'all. And I appreciate the social media updates about what's going on in the city and in the district. They're timely, they're informative, they're optional. If you don't have a lot of time, you don't have to look at them, but if you want to, you can. And also compliment Kenner TV. And I'm so glad that they're now broadcasting via Facebook, because I am not a cable subscriber, so I never did know how to get in touch to watch any of the presentations. And that's it. I just want to say thank you. Kenner's a great city.